And it says here, for the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with the navy of Hiram. 1 in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks. So King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth for riches and wisdom. And all the earth sought to Solomon to hear his wisdom, which God had put in his heart. You see that? So even then, if he wasn't bringing in just just like the gold from the expeditions that were coming to him, right? He was also able to make money off the nations, man, just by expounding wisdom to them. You see that with the Queen of Sheba. The Queen of Sheba basically brought all of this gold and these spices and stuff like that to King Solomon to hear his wisdom. All right, just to pay him, just to hear him expound on certain things, right? Or any question that she had. So it shows you that Solomon, anything that was on her heart, man, and she had the desire to know, Solomon was able to tell her, and then some. And then she seen the organization of this man's house. This is why she said, "Blessed be the Lord God of Israel." You see that? So she was giving praise unto the Father, man, for such a well organized and well structured people. You see that? So this is what was, this was the wealth in which Solomon accumulated, right? So you read about this. This is the economical wealth and power and the wisdom and knowledge of Israel at this time. All right. But now we about to go and see the downside, the downfall of this beautiful nation, man. Our fathers, the magnificence in which they held. What was the downfall of it all? You see that? So now let's read chapter 11, and we're going to start at verse 1, and then we'll start to pick it up, going into the 10 tribes and the exile, etc. So now it says, and King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughters of Pharaoh, Egyptians, women of the Moabites and Ammonites, Edomites and Zidonians and Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, ye shall not go in to them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your hearts after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. So this is when Solomon got up in age, okay? Now it says, for it came to pass when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of of David his father. All right, so his heart wasn't as perfect with the Most High as David's heart was with the Most High. All right, so even when David messed up, you see that David sought, the Most High with all his heart. Okay, and David loved the Most High. He always communicated with the Most High. All right. Which also goes back to show you, man, how we have to be with the Most High ourselves. All right. How we have to have that perfect connection and speaking to the Most High, constantly rending the calves of our lips as the sacrifices. All right. To speak to the Most High, right? To speak to, our deity. Okay. So everybody else got a deity that they speak to, right? Which are dead deities, but we have the ultimate living power, and we have to be able to speak to him. We just don't come at him in any old fashion or any old way, but no, we come to the Most High, man, with respect. All right. So now it says, for Solomon went after Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord and went not fully after the Lord as David his father. So all of this power, you know, I mean, women basically was David. I mean, basically, the downfall of Solomon, right? We seen a sample of that with David. Okay, all right. Not all of not multiple wives, anything like that, but because David still maintained his integrity even before, he basically looked at Bathsheba. All right, but we see that to please his wives, right? To try to understand his wives, he began to worship their gods. Okay, and he also gives understanding of that. in the book of Ecclesiastes. All right. So read all Ecclesiastes and get into the mind of Solomon, right, and his wisdom. Okay. And you'll see, the things that basically began to drive him to a certain point. All right. Of how everything is just pretty much vanity outside of doing what? To fear God and keep his commandments. All right. So now he says in verse 7, then did Solomon build high places for Chemos, the abomination of Moab, and in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. So he even began to build high places of worship, right, for these false gods. All right. And it says, and likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burned incense and sacrificed unto their gods. You see that? He said, likewise, he did all of these. So remember, it said, man, he had many wives that he was dealing with. You see that? You talking about he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines. And it said he did all for his strange wives. Any of his wives that was heathen, but he basically built an altar for them to worship, built a place of worship for them to worship their deity, and he also sacrificed unto them too. And the Lord was angry with Solomon because his heart was turned from the Lord God of Israel, which appeared unto him twice. The Most High basically appeared unto him twice. All right. And he basically turned his back on the Lord. And he had commanded him concerning this thing that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which the Lord commanded. So the thing was, it wasn't the women per se, but it was going after the gods of his wives. You see that? And following them and turning away from the Most High. That's what angered the Heavenly Father the most. All right. Because he was turned away. He went into idolatry. All right. By following these gods. And this is what began the downfall or the downward spiral of our nation. Just the sins of this man. All right. Just the sins of Solomon. And we already know if Solomon is doing this, then you already know all of Israel is witnessing this, and this is what's causing the nation, man, to sin. Okay. So now he says, wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, for as much as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes which I have commanded thee, I will surely rent the kingdom from thee, and will give it to thy servant. Notwithstanding in thy days, I will not do it for David thy father's sake, but I will rent it out of the hand of thy son. So whoever is the successor, right? He said the most high said he's going to rent it out of his hands. Okay. And you'll see who Solomon gave the kingdom to was his son, right? Rehoboam, all right, whose mother was an Ammonitess. Okay, who was an Ammonitess. Now it says, howbeit I will not rent away all the kingdom, but will give one tribe to thy son for David my servant's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, which I have chosen. All right. And the Lord stirred up an adversary unto Solomon, Hadad the Edomite. He was of the king's seed in Edom. For it came to pass when David was in Edom, and Joab, the captain of the host, was gone up to bury the slain, after he had smitten every male in Edom. For 6 months did Joab remain there with all Israel, until he had cut off every male in Edom. So they had killed almost every male in Edom outside of those who did escape. All right. So that was dealing with. So then you'll see that the Lord basically began to cause conflict and trouble and strife in Solomon's life. All right. You know what I mean? That's what happens, man, when you raise up an adversary for somebody. Okay. It began to make trouble for your kingdom. All right. So now let's drop down and let's read verse 26. Okay. So now, let's read verse 25 just to prove that point I just made. And he was an adversary to Israel all the days of Solomon, besides the mischief that Hadad did. and he abhorred Israel and reigned over Syria. So this Edomite basically was reigning in Syria. All right. So now it says in verse 26, and Jeroboam the son of Nebat, an Ephrathite of Zedah, Solomon's servant, whose mother's name was Zerah, a widow, even he lifted up his hand against the king. And this was the cause that he lifted up his hand against the king. Solomon built Milo and repaired the breaches of the city of David, his father. Right? So look at that. He's repairing the breaches of the city of David. So that shows you that the Syrians, man, were coming in and causing destruction, all right, in Israel. Okay, so Solomon didn't die in peace. All right, he had to witness some things. So now it says, and the man Jeroboam was a mighty man of valor, and Solomon, seeing the young man that he was industrious, he made him ruler over all the charge of the house of Joseph. All right. So remember, Jeroboam was an Ephraimite. All right. He was an Ephraimite. So yes, he was a son, one of the sons. He basically, you know, according to the heritage, right? He would have been the son of Joseph. All right. So basically, Ephraim and Manasseh, they were sons of Joseph. Okay. So now it says, and it came to pass at the time when Jeroboam went out of Jerusalem that the prophet Ahijah the Shulonite found him in the way, and he clad himself with a new garment, and they two were alone in the field. So Ahijah seen Jeroboam, right? And basically, he was wearing this new garment, and basically, he's going to show you what he's going to do with this garment. And Ahijah caught the new garment that was on him and rent it in 12 pieces. All right, so he took the new garment which he had on him, he took it off and he rent it in 12 pieces. Okay, so we're going to understand why he basically did this in front of Jeroboam. And it says, and he said unto Jeroboam, take thee 10 pieces, for thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, behold, I will rent the kingdom out of the hand of Solomon, and I will give 10 tribes to thee, but he shall have one tribe for my servant David's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, the city which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. You see that? So he said that he was going to rent the kingdom out of Solomon's hands. He's going to give 10 tribes unto Jeroboam, right? And he's only going to give Solomon's son one tribe, all right, which is the tribe of Judah, okay? So then it says, because that they forsook me and have worshipped Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Zidonians, Chemosh, the god of the Moabites, Molcom, the god of the children of Ammon, and have not walked in my ways, to do that which is right in my eyes, and to keep my statutes and my judgments as David his father. Howbeit I will not take the whole kingdom out of his hand, but I will make him prince all the days of his life for David my servant's sake, whom I chose, because he kept my commandments and my statutes. But I will take the kingdom out of his hand, and I will take the kingdom out of his hand. Where I was at, and will give it unto thee, even 10 tribes. All right. So he said, even 10 tribes. Go ahead. Even 10 tribes. All right. And unto his son will I give one tribe, that David my servant may have a light always before me in Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen me to put my name there. So out of the love that the Most High had for David, all right, he said, I'm going to give him one tribe. All right. So that, he was always going to have a light there, instead of the kingdom being completely rent out of the hands of the house of David. All right, one tribe, okay, which is the tribe of Judah. So remember, a covenant was established with David. All right, so this is one of the main reasons why one tribe will still be given to him. Okay, but you'll find out later on in history, right, when we go over the history of, the southern kingdom, you'll see that there were basically two tribes that joined them, which basically give you a total of three tribes. All right, so you had Levi, and you had Levi, and you also had Benjamin. Okay, that clave unto Judah. All right. So remember, many of the Levites were kicked out of their territories because of Jeroboam. All right, Jeroboam had removed many of the priests from their office and duty as priest, and put the laws of sort as the priest. And they basically, all of the Levites, they resorted unto all of Judea. All right, they went down into Judah. They resided in the coast or wherever they could find, safety. All right. So now let's continue reading. So now it says, and I will take thee, and thou shalt reign according to all that thou desire, thy soul desire, and shall be king over Israel. And it shall be, if thou wilt hearken unto all that I command thee, and will walk in my ways, and do that is right in my sight, to keep my statutes and my commandments, as David my servant did, that I will be with thee, and build thee a sure house, as I built for David, and I will give Israel unto thee. You see that? So he's like, you will have a sure house built for you, all right, if you follow my laws, statutes, and commandments. But do you think Jeroboam hearkened unto this? Nah. We'll read and we'll see what Jeroboam did. And it says, and I will for this afflict the seed of David, but not forever. All right. So he said, I will afflict the seed of David, but not forever. Okay. So remember, the house of Judah had to be punished. Okay. Or excuse me, the seed of David had to be punished. All right. Because of what Solomon did. All right. And it says, Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam, and Jeroboam arose and fled into Egypt unto Shishak, king of Egypt, and was in Egypt until the death of Solomon. And the rest of the acts of Solomon, and all that he did, and his wisdom, are they not written in the book of the acts of Solomon? And the time that Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel was 40 years. And Solomon slept with his fathers, and was buried in the city of David his father, and Rehoboam his son reigned in his stead. All right, so he reigned in his stead. Okay. So now in chapter 12, you're going to read about Jeroboam. All right, so now let's get some more of these dates and stuff. Okay, let's open this up real quick. Hold on one second, everybody. Hold on one second, please. 1 second. Let me pull this over so you guys can see it. So as I said before, you had the house of Saul. Now you had the house of David. So you had David and Solomon. Now you have Rehoboam, who is now the king. All right. Who became king after the death of Solomon, right? But the Most High basically rent the kingdom in two. All right. So remember, you had 10 tribes that was given to Jeroboam, and you had a tribe that was left for Rehoboam. Okay. And you're going to see in chapter 12 that it basically shows you that it was of the Lord that he had done this thing. All right. So we're not going to read all of chapter 12. You can read all of chapter 12 on your own time, but we're going to just kind of go through it, and pick out some of the key verses, and go from there. All right. So you have basically, for the house of David at this time, you had three rulers. All right. David, Solomon, and Rehoboam. Okay. Then now, so for the kingdom of Israel, right? So the kingdom of Israel, okay, you had the first king of Israel, right, which we're going to read about, who is Jeroboam, all right? Jeroboam is the first king of the northern kingdom of Israel, all right? So now he also had a house as well, okay? They called it the house of Jeroboam. So now let's read this in chapter 12 and verse 1. And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel were come to Shechem to make him king. So that's where they wanted to make Rehoboam king. Okay. And it came to pass when Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who was yet in Egypt, heard of it, for he was fled from the presence of King Solomon, and Jeroboam dwelt in Egypt, right? So remember, Solomon tried to kill Jeroboam, all right? Remember when he found out that he was going to become the king over the 10 tribes, all right? Solomon wanted him dead, okay, but he escaped. So now, this is after the death of Solomon, all right? And now let's continue reading. So now it says, verse 3, that they sent and called him, and Jeroboam and all the congregation of Israel came and spake unto Rehoboam, saying, Thy father made our yoke grievous. Now therefore make thou this grievous service of thy father, and his heavy yoke which he put upon us lighter, and we will serve thee. You see that? He said, and we will, they was like, man, your father's yoke was heavy. So that shows you that Solomon in his wickedness was oppressing Israel mightily, all right, very heavy, okay, to build those high places for his wives and things of that nature, right? So you see Solomon, he was evil. He was doing some evil things, all right? So now they're just asking just to make it lighter, okay? And they said, and we will serve thee, right? But you see, uh, but you'll see, man, that Rehoboam didn't take wise counsel. He didn't take wise counsel from the ones who were supposed to take it from the older men, but he listened to his cousins, and basically he ended up losing the kingdom forever. All right. So now let's drop down and let's read. He says in verse 12, okay? So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the third day, as the king had appointed, saying, Come to me again the third day. And the king answered the people roughly, and forsook the old men's counsel that they gave him. So you can only imagine, man, how those old men's faces were looking when they was like, "What the hell is he doing? What is he doing?" You can only imagine, man. They like, this is not the counsel that we gave him. All right. So then he says, so then he says, and spake to them after the counsel of the young men, saying, My father made your yoke heavy, and I will add to your yoke. My father also chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. Wherefore the king hearkened not unto the people, for the cause was from the Lord, that he might perform his saying, which the Lord spake by Ahijah the Shilonite unto Jeroboam the son of Nebat. So when all Israel saw that the king hearkened not unto them, the people answered the king, saying, What portion have we in David? Neither have we inheritance in the sons of Jesse to our tents. O Israel, now see to thine own house, David. So Israel departed unto their tents. But as for the children of Israel which dwelt in the cities of Judah, Rehoboam reigned over them. And King Rehoboam sent Adoram, who was over the tribute, and all Israel stoned him with stones, that he died. Therefore King Rehoboam made speed to get him up to his chariot to flee to Jerusalem. All right. So Israel rebelled against the house of David unto this day. All right. So they rebelled, all right, against the house of David. So now this was it. All right. Remember, this thing was of the Lord. Okay. So that the house of Israel was no longer pretty much they were no longer going to basically, be one. All right. They were no longer going to be one. And it came to pass, I'm in verse 20, and it came to pass when all Israel heard that Jeroboam was come up again, Jeroboam was come again, they sent and called him to Jerusalem. Behold thy gods, I'm sorry, I jumped over. He says, called unto him the congregation and made him king over all Israel, meaning over all the northern kingdom. That's what they made him king of. All right. And there was none that followed the house of David, but the tribe of Judah only. All right. So remember, this thing was of the Lord. All right. So then you're going to see that Rehoboam wanted to fight to try to reclaim the northern kingdom, but this thing was not going to work. So you'll see that the Most High sent one of his prophets out and basically told them, like, no, ain't gonna be no fighting. All right. This, every man return to his house. This thing that's happened, this is of the Lord. That's it. All right. So verse 24 explains this. Thus said the Lord, ye shall not go up nor fight against your brethren, the children of Israel. Return every man to his house, for this thing is from me. They hearken therefore to the word of the Lord and return to depart according to the word of the Lord. And Jeroboam built Shechem in Mount Ephraim and dwelt therein, and went out from thence and built Penuel, excuse me. And Jeroboam said in his heart, now shall the kingdom return to the house of David. So this is what he was pondering, man, as he was building these cities, right? So he's like, he had built his first capital in Shechem, right? Then he went and built Penuel, right? So then he's like, you know. So he's like, the people will return to David. So he has to keep that from happening, right? So let's see what he came up with. And it says, if this people go up to do sacrifice in the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, then shall the heart of this people turn again to their Lord, even to Rehoboam the king of Judah, and they shall kill me, and go again to Jeroboam king of Judah. So he was worried about his people reuniting with the under the tribe of Judah, or his portion of the kingdom reuniting under the tribe of Judah. Okay, so this is what he was worried about. All right. So then it says, whereupon the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold, and said unto them, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. So he said, it's too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold thy gods, these 2 golden calves which he built. So basically, when he took that counsel, he had to understand, man, what is the weakness of this people? What will keep them from going up to the Feast of Tabernacles? All right. And, basically, falling in love again with the kingdom of Judah. What's going to keep them from doing that? So you had to think about it. Those men that were his councilmen were like, you know what? The history shows that our fathers, they were always into what you would call idol worship, right? So this is something that this man had to devise, okay? So it shows you, man, that very many, that wicked men, man, can and will cause the people, man, to err so that they can maintain power. Period. You see that? And this is what Jeroboam did. All right. And he set up in verse 29, and he set the one in Bethel, right? Bethel meaning the house of God. Remember, that's a key place. All right. Remember, that's exactly where Jacob, our forefather, rested his head. Okay. And he said, he's seen what they call Jacob's ladder. And he's seen the gods ascending and descending in his dream. Right. And he said, how dreadful of a place is this? Well, surely this is the house of God, and I didn't know it. So then what happened? Jacob took the stone, right, and basically made it a monument showing you that this is the house of God. That's why he called it Bethel. All right. So so basically he planted a golden calf there, right? And he basically planted one in Dan. Okay. So this had to be Dan, most likely to the north. All right. So from Bethel, right, to Dan, okay, to the north, the new territory where Dan basically was occupying. All right, or they took over, which was formerly called Lashem, I think. So it says, and this thing became a sin, for the people went to worship before the one even unto Dan. So this thing became a sin unto Israel. All right. So remember, the scripture that you can go back and reference is Exodus 32, Exodus chapter 32. All right. Starting at verses 1. Right. And you'll see that Israel made golden calves, right, to worship. All right. Because they said, we know not what became of this man Moses. Make us gods. All right. So they wanted gods that they could physically see and that they could physically worship. All right. Just the same way that Israel wanted a king. They wanted, they wanted a king that they could serve just like all of the other nations, that they can give praise to, physically bow down to, work for, the whole nine. All right. So now, let's see. Yeah, so let's continue reading. So then it says, and he made an house of high places, and made priests of the lowest of the people, which were not of the sons of Levi. And Jeroboam ordained a feast of the 8th month, on the 15th day of the month, like unto the feast that is in Judah, that he offered upon the altar. So did he in Bethel, sacrificing unto the calves that he had made. And he placed in Bethel the priest of the high places which he had made. So he offered upon the altar which he had made with Bethel the 15th day of the 8th month, even in the month which he had devised of his own heart, and ordained a feast unto the children of Israel, and he offered upon the altar and burned incense. Right, so he was the king that was burning off incense and things like that to these golden calves. All right, so he basically created a feast in the 8th month. Right, so basically like similar to the feast of the tabernacles that's in the 7th month. All right, because remember, in the 7th month, we got the Memorial of Trumpets, we have the Day of Atonement, then we have Feast of Tabernacles, right? So he created a feast after. He created in the 8th month a feast for all Israel to come together and worship these calves. All right. So remember, this was a device of his own heart as well. Okay, that this should be done. All right, to have a feast ordained. All right. So you see why this is why the northern kingdom is so heavily into idolatry, okay? Because this was a seed that was definitely uh, embedded, even more so into, what I'm saying, into the 10 tribes of Israel. All right, not so much Judah. I mean, Judah had his share of wicked kings, man, but it wasn't as bad because at least Judah had kings that were righteous. You know what I mean, to set things back in order. The northern kingdom did not. They didn't have any, right? So Jeroboam basically was the first dynasty of the northern kingdom of Israel. All right. So only two from his house basically were able, maintain rulership, and the Most High basically cut off that dynasty. All right. He cut off, Jeroboam. He killed his sons, all of that. All right. So then you had the second dynasty of Israel, right, which is called the house of Baasha. All right, which you had Baasha, Elah, and Zimri. Okay, and you'll read about them. You'll read about them after you read about Jeroboam. Okay, so you'll see that, like I said, the Lord took Jeroboam and basically he cut off his seed. Okay, he told him he was going to cut off his seed. All right, so he basically was taking. He basically hold on one second. Let me see. So no, that's going into the southern kingdom. So I'll talk about Shishak the first later. All right, so he was like a Libyan ruler of Egypt. Okay, so he was not a native Egyptian. All right, so the Egyptians were going through their own turmoil in history at this particular time, being conquered by outside invaders. All right, so that's another portion of history we could take a look at later on. All right, so now you see after Jeroboam, right? You'll see that a man named Bishah pretty much took over and began to reign. Let me see. Here we go, and it says here in verse 27, and Bashar, the son of Ahijah of the house of Issachar, conspired against him, and Bashar smote him at Gibbethon, and and belonged to which belonged to the Philistines, for Nadab and all Israel laid siege to Gibbethon. All right. So basically, you see that there was basically a conspiracy that went on for Nadab to be killed. All right, so you have Bashar, the tribe of Issachar. So I think this was pretty much like the last time that the tribe of the exact king would be mentioned. All right. So you really don't see it being mentioned anywhere else after that. Okay. So we know that Jeroboam was of the tribe of Benjamin. I'm sorry, Jeroboam was of the tribe of Ephraim. Excuse me. Then you see that Baasha, it says he was of the house of Issachar, and he basically killed Nadab. All right. So it says, even in the third year of Asa, king of Judah, did Bashan slay him and reign in his stead. So this was like in the third year of Asa, okay, who was the king of Judah. All right. So now you had Baasha, as I said, you had Baasha, Elah, and you had Zimri. So this would be like the second dynasty. All right. And then after that, you would have the third dynasty. Okay, so then you would go into Omri, right, or Omri. Then you had his son Ahab. Then you had his son Azariah. Then you had Jeroam. All right, they were all of what you would call the house of Ahab. All right, or excuse me, of Omri. Okay, so we see that Ahab met he had a very, he was a very wicked and evil king. All right. So you have four kings in this dynasty. Okay. In this third dynasty, you had three kings that were in the second. You had two that were in the first. All right. So Jeroboam and Nadab was in the first dynasty of the kings of Israel. Right. Then in the second dynasty, you had Baasha, Elah, and Zimri. Right. So remember, their capital was what you would call Tisra. All right. Then you had Omri. All right. So then let's jump a little bit. So let's go to chapter 16 and let's get let's see, where is it at? Yeah, let's drop down chapter 16 and let's get verse 5. It says, now the rest of the acts of Baasha and what he did, his might, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel, which we're reading about? So Baasha slept with his fathers and was buried in Tisra, and Elah, his son, reigned in his stead. So this was his son. And also by the hand of the prophet Jehu, the son of Hananiah, came the word of the Lord against Baasha and against his house, even for all the evil that he did in the sight of the Lord, in provoking him to anger with the work of his hands, in being like the house of Jeroboam, and because he had killed him. It says, in the 26th year of Asa, king of Judah, began Elah, the son of Baasha, to reign over Israel in Tisra 2 years. And his servant Zimri, captain of half his chariots, conspired against him, and he was in Tisra, drinking himself drunk in the house of Arzah, steward of his house in Tisra. And Zimri went in and smote him and killed him in the 27th year of Asa, king of Judah, and reigned in his stead. And it came to pass when he began to reign, as soon as he sat on his throne, that he slew all the house of Baasha. He left him not one that pisseth against the wall, neither of his kinfolks nor of his friends. So he basically wiped out his entire house. All right, it didn't matter if he was friend, cousin, he killed everybody. And it says, thus did Zimri destroy all the house of Baasha according to the word of the Lord, which he spake against Baasha by Jehu the prophet, for all the sins of Baasha and the sins of Elah his son, by which they sinned, and by which they made Israel sin in provoking the Lord God of Israel to anger with their vanities, meaning that worthlessness. Now, the rest of the acts of Elah and all he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? All right, so now let's check this out. Now watch this. It says, in the 27th year of Asa, king of Judah, did Zimri reign 7 days in Tisra, and the people were encamped against Gibbethon, which belonged to the Philistines. And the people that were encamped heard, saying, Zimri hath conspired, and hath also slain the king. Wherefore all Israel made Omri the captain of the host, king over Israel that day in the camp. So they took Omri, who was the captain of the host, and they made him king over Israel this time. So now it says, and it came to pass when Zimri saw that the city was taken, that he went into the palace of the king's house and burnt the king's house over him with fire, and he died. So he basically set the house on fire and killed himself. All right, because he knew what was going to happen to him. He knew what was going to happen to him. So him dying in that fire was probably going to be way better than what was going to happen to him. All right. For his sins which he sinned in doing evil in the sight of the Lord, and walking in the way of Jeroboam, and in his sin which he did to make Israel to sin. Now the rest of the acts of Zimri and his treason that he wrought, and are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? Then the people of Israel divided in two parts. Half of the people followed Tibni, the son of Githnath, to make him king, and half followed Omri. But the people that followed Omri prevailed against the people that followed Tibnah, the son of Gibnath, and Timnah died, and Omri reigned. And in the 31st year of Asa, king of Judah, began Omri to reign over Israel 12 years, and six he reigned in 6 years reigned he in Tisra. So he reigned in Tisra for 6 years. Now check this out. This is where Sumeria comes in. All right, because he's the founder of the capital kingdom of Sumeria. All right. And it says, and he bought the hill Sumeria of Sumer for 2 talents of silver, and built on the hill, and called the name of the city which he built after the name of Sumer, owner of the hill, Sumeria, right? Or Sumeron, okay, which basically means watch tower. So he says, because Omri wrought evil in the eyes of the Lord, and did worse than all that were before him, for he walked in all the ways of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and in his sins wherewith he made Israel to sin, to provoke the Lord God of Israel to anger with their vanities. Now the rest of the acts of Omri which he did, and his might that he showed, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? So Omri slept with his fathers and was buried in Sumeria, and Ahab his son reigned in his stead. So you see his son Ahab reigned in his stead, and you see that he's gonna knock his father right out of the ballpark, man, in wickedness. Okay. So now we're gonna read everything that he's done, because now it's going to go into Elisha, and the mighty acts of Elijah and the things that he's done. All right, how he was warning Ahab and all of that. Right. So now, so now it says here. So Omri slept with his fathers. I'm in verse 28 in chapter, 1 Kings chapter 16. Okay. And Omri slept with his fathers and was buried in Sumeria, and Ahab his son reigned in his stead. And in the 38th year of Asa, king of Judah, began Ahab the son of Omri to reign over Israel. And Ahab the son of Omri reigned over Israel and in Sumeria 22 years. So he had a 22-year reign. So 2 decades and 2 years. All right. And it says, and Ahab the son of Omri did evil in the sight of the Lord above all that were before him. And it came to pass, as it had been a light thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam. So it said it had been a light thing for him to walk into the sins of Jeroboam. So it was nothing to him. So what Jeroboam was doing was child's play to him. All right. And it says, to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, that he took a wife, Jezebel, the daughter of Ethelbal, king of the Zidonians, and went and served Baal and worshipped him. You see that? he said he went to serve Baal and he worshipped him. All right. And he reared up an altar for Baal in the house of Baal, which he had built in Sumeria. And Ahab made a grove, and Ahab did more to provoke the Lord God of Israel to anger than all the kings of Israel that were before him. In his days did Hiel the Bethelite build Jericho. He laid the foundation thereof in Abiram his firstborn, and set up the gates thereof in his youngest son Sergrub, according to the word of the Lord which he spake by Joshua the son of Nun. Right. So if you go back to that, you'll see that no one was supposed to rebuild the foundation of that city, and if they did, they would be cursed. All right, they would be cursed if they did so. All right. So let's just check that out. I mean, let's go to the book of Joshua chapter 6, so we can see what he's talking about. No one was supposed to rebuild or lay the foundation for that place. Chapter 6 and verse. Here we go, verse 26. And it said, and Joshua adjured them at that time, saying, cursed be the man before the Lord that raiseth up and buildeth this city Jericho. He shall lay the foundation thereof in his firstborn, and in his youngest son shall he set up the gates of it. So the Lord was with Joshua, his fame was noised throughout all the country. So he said, cursed be the man, cursed be the one who basically they built Jericho. All right. So, and you'll see that during the time or during the dynasty of Ahab, which was the third dynasty of the northern kingdom, you'll see that it was done during the reign of Ahab. All right, during his reign. Okay, so now, just to fast forward a little bit, so that was the third dynasty. All right, you'll see that the house of Ahab was basically taken out by the fourth dynasty. Okay, and its king, the king of the fourth dynasty, his name was Jehu. Okay, so now, just reading the rest of the kings of the third dynasty, you had Omri, you had Ahab, you had Azariah, and you also had Jeroham. Okay, Jeroham. All right, so Jeroham was the last one. He was killed. He was killed by Jehu. All right, all of the house of Ahab was basically exterminated. All of the house of Ahab was was exterminated by Jehu. Okay, so now you had Jehu, you got Jehoash, you got Joash, you have Jeroboam the second, and you have Zechariah. So this was a very strong dynasty. The fourth dynasty of Israel was a very strong dynasty, right? You'll read about many of the acts of Jeroboam the second and how he, basically he fought with the Assyrians. He fought with the Syrians a lot as well. All right. So let's see. Let's pull up Jehu. Because Ahab made a covenant with them. All right. Ahab made peace with them, with the Syrians. All right. Because Ahab wasn't no joke either. All right. Israel at that time, their military might was very strong too. They had a very strong force. Let's go back. So that's Second Kings. That's Jeroham. Get into Elisha. It's Nahum. So this is when the house of David was pretty much being exterminated. So yeah, Second Kings chapter 9. It go is going to go into that. Second Kings chapter 9. Yeah, it's going to deal with that. Basically Jehu. All right, and his takeover. So now it says, let me read this in chapter 9. I'm gonna read verse 13, or actually I'm gonna start at verse 11. It says, then Jehu came forth to the servants of his lord, and one said unto him, is all well? Wherefore came this mad fellow to thee? And he said unto them, ye know the man and his communication. And they said, it is false. Tell us now. And he said, thus and thus spake he to me, saying, thus saith the Lord, I have anointed thee king over Israel. Then they hastened and took every man his garment and put it under him on the top of the stairs and blew with the trumpet, saying, Jehu is king. All right, Jehu is king. So they knew that he was thinking that the prophet was like, oh man, you know this dude, he came here lying to me, man, saying I was the king of Israel. And he was like, everybody was like, what? So they went back and they made the announcement, man, that this is the new king over Israel now. All right. So now it says that so Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Nimshi, conspired against Jeroham. Now Jeroham had kept Ramoth Gilead, he and all Israel, because of Azahel, king of Syria. But King Jeroham was returned to be healed in Jezreel of the wounds which the Syrians had gave him when he fought with Azael, the king of Syria. And Jehu said, if it be your minds, then let none go forth nor escape out of the city to go tell it in Jezreel. So Jehu rode in a chariot and went to Jezreel from Jeroham laid there. And Azariah, king of Judah, was come down to see Jeroham. So you see that this is Azariah. He basically was killed, all right, because you see that there was a connection between the house of Ahab and the king, some of the kings of Judah. All right, one of the kings of Judah. Let's see. It says Jeroham. That's Jeroham. It's Jehoash. So now it says Jeroham the second was the son and successor of Jehoash, and the 13th king of the ancient kingdom of Israel, which he ruled for 41 years in the 8th century BC. His reign was contemporary with those of Amaziah and Uzziah, kings of Judah. So I believe it was Amaziah who basically became wicked. All right, and that whole dynasty. I mean that king was basically connected with with Ahab and all of them. All right, so you got to go back and actually read it for yourself because I think Atalia, all right, who was the queen, all right, she was like the sister of Ahab. She was like the sister of Ahab. But I gotta go. I'm gonna go back. I'll go back and check that. Hold on one second. Let me see. Let's see. Let's look it up. Hmm. Okay. Hold on one second. Yeah, here she go. Okay. It says here that Atalia was the daughter of King Ahab of Israel, and her name means the Lord is exalted. King Ahab was a corrupt ruler who led the people of Israel into false worship of Baal and idolatrous practice. Yeah. So she was basically, yeah. So she was the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel. So this is King Jeroham of Judah who married Queen Atalia and became associated with the family of Ahab. Jeroham apparently impressed and influenced by Ahab because he became a part of his lineage, right, through his marriage to Atalia. So that's why his sons was killed too. Uh, he also governed Judah the same way as Ahab. It says once Atalia became his wife, she encouraged Jeroham to continue the ways of her parents. Yeah, so that's why you see when Jeroham basically when he was killed by Jehu and Atalia, she took over, right? And then she killed all of Jeroham's sons except for one. All right, and that's the one that the high priest one of the priests ended up, basically taking on to be the next king of Israel, or he raised to be the next king of Israel. Hold on, let me see. Yeah, so we'll deal with that part. So Atalia, if I pronounce that correctly, she was the daughter of King Ahab and the daughter of Jezebel. All right, she had married Jeroham, who was the king of Judah. Okay, and then they had sons. All right, Jeroham was killed right by Jehu, and then once Jeroham was killed, then she took over. Talia took over as then she became the queen of Judah, and she had a short reign. And then basically one of her one and it was she was really wicked because she killed her sons. All right, she killed the rest of her sons just to maintain the whole power. That just shows you how evil she was. All right, especially being the daughter of Ahab. But, we'll have to go into a lesson on that one too, man. That'll be a good one too, man. But yeah, so let's continue. So let's read chapter 10. Oh yeah, here we go. This is dealing with Italia. Yeah, Jehu did some cleaning up, man, and the Lord basically allowed him to reign for like 4 generations. You know what I'm saying? As the king of Israel because of the way he executed judgment. All right, let's go back to the king's list. Let's get some more of these kings. So that was the fourth dynasty. All right. So then you have one of the kings whose name was Shulam. All right. He reigned for a short period of time. Then you had a fifth dynasty that emerged, which was Menahem and Pekah or Pekah, and you know they reigned short periods. Okay, and then you have the end of that dynasty, which was Pekah, Pekah, and Hosea. All right, Hosea was like the last king of the northern kingdom. Okay, so now let's uh let's go to chapter 16. All right, let's go to chapter 16, or actually chapter 15 is good. So chapter 15 and verse 19, and it says, "And Pul, the king of Assyria, came against the land, and Menahem gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver, that his hand might be with him, to confirm the kingdom in his hand. And Menahem exacted the money of Israel, even of all the mighty men of wealth, of each man 50 shekels of silver, to give it to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria turned back and stayed not there in the land." Right? So he basically paid off the king of Assyria, okay, not to come in and to carry many of them away. All right. So then it says, "And the rest of the acts of Menahem and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? And Menahem slept with his fathers, and Pekahiah his son reigned in his stead. And in the 50th year of Azariah, king of Judah, Pekahiah the son of Menahem began to reign over Israel in Samaria, and reigned 2 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. He departed not from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. And Pekah the son of Remaliah, a captain of his, conspired against him, and smote him in Samaria, in the palace of the king's house, with Argob and Ariah, and with him 50 men of the Gileadites, and he killed him, and reigned in his room. And the rest of the acts of Pekahiah, and all that he did, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel. And in the 250th year of Azariah, meaning this is Uzziah, right, in this 52nd year, the king of Judah, Pekahiah the son of Remaliah, began to reign over Israel in Samaria, and reigned 20 years. All right, so Pekah reigned 20 years. Okay, and it says, "And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, and he departed not from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin," meaning idolatry, burning incense, all right, to these strange gods, all of that. "In the days of Pekah, king of Israel, came Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and took Ijon, and took Abel, Macbeth, Mecca, and Janoah, and Kadesh, and Hazar, and Gilead and Galilee, and all the land of Naphtali, and carried them captive to Assyria." So during his day, during the day of Pekah, man, you see that they all of these of the northern kingdom basically got hit, all right, severely, okay, by the Assyrians. They basically took many of those northern kingdom Israelites captives into Assyria. That's why it said Gilead and Galilee and all the land of Naphtali, and carried them to Assyria. So if you have your Bible Atlas, all right, check out your Bible Atlas. You know what I mean? And look up those cities and those lands that I just named. All right. Let's look it up. Let's look it up a little bit. It's the kingdom of Herod. It's the Maccabean revolt. It's the northern kingdom. It's all New Testament. Let's check this out. So it says he said he took Gilad. It says that he took yep. So Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, took Ijon and Abel, Macbeth, and Genoa, and Kedesh, and Hazar, and Gilad, Galilee, and all the land of Naphtali, and carried them to Assyria. All right. So if you can see this map, you can see this map. Sorry if you can't really see it that well. All right. So just check out. So just imagine. All right. You have the Assyrians taking away what you would call all the land of Naphtali, right, which is here to the north. All the land of Naphtali took all of this away, right? So then they came, so they took that. They took what you would call uh, Gilad, right? So they came and took the inhabitants of Gad, and they took many of the inhabitants of Reuben, all right? So they carried them away. They carried them away captive, okay? Just looking at some of those places, all right? So I'll have a better map for you guys soon. But that's what happened. All right. So they basically took many of them away. But it gets worse. All right. So this was just during Pika, the king of Remaliah, right? You could also reference this back to Isaiah chapter 7 as well. All right. How Ephraim and Syria are confederate. All right. So Pika basically is an Ephraimite. All right. And we get that understanding from Isaiah. Okay, Isaiah chapter 7. All right. So now it says, so now if we go to chapter 17, let's check this out. So now it says, in the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hosea the son of Elah to reign in Samaria over Israel 9 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel, which that were before him. So he was wicked, but he wasn't that wicked. All right. So it says, against him came up Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, and Hosea became his servant and gave him presents, right? And the king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hosea, for he had sent messengers to the king of Egypt and brought no presents to the king of Assyria as he had done year by year. Therefore, the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison. Right, so he basically took Hosea prison. Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it 3 years. So he besieged it 3 years. So this is what was going on. All right, um, with with Hosea. Okay, and this was going on with Samaria at this time. All right. So then it says, in the ninth year of Hosea, the king of Assyria excuse me, took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Helah and in the harbor by the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. So that's where they basically carried them captive. Okay, they carried them captive in a way in the land of Assyria. All right, and also in Helah and by the heart and in harbor by the river of Gozan, and in the city of the Medes. That's where they basically transplanted this people. Okay, Israel. So this is Israel, the northern kingdom, being exiled out of their land, right? Because the Most High uh, no longer wanted them in that land because the abominations and the things that they were doing. So the Most High said he rejected the seed of Israel, okay, and allowed them to be, in the hands of their spoilers, those that hated them, those that just had no love for them. Israel had many enemies, okay. Israel made many enemies. And guess what? Once these nations sought the opportunity, man, to destroy Israel, they basically, you know, that was it. All right. The nations did whatever they wanted. Okay. Remember, the Most High said that he would turn his back all right, to us, and he will see what our end shall be. And when the Most High says that, that means he's taking his protection away from us, and he's basically giving us into the hands of the heathen. All right. So now it says, for it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, which brought them up out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and feared other gods, and walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out from before the children of Israel, and the kings of Israel, which they had made. And the children of Israel did secretly those things that were not right against the Lord their God, and they built them high places in all their cities, from the tower of the watchman to the fenced cities. And they set them up images and groves in every high hill and under every green tree. And there they burnt incense in all the high places, as did the heathen whom the Lord carried away from before them, and wrought wicked things to provoke the Lord to anger. For they served idols, wherefore the Lord had said unto them, they shall not do this thing. Yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all the prophets and by all the seers, saying, turn ye from your evil ways, and keep my commandments and my statutes, according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants the prophets. Notwithstanding, they would not hear, but hardened their necks like the necks of their fathers, that did not believe in Yahweh their power. And they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he made with their fathers, and his testimony which which he testified against them. And they followed vanities and became vain, and went after the heathen that were around about them, concerning whom Yahweh had charged them that they should not do like them, that they left all the commandments of Yahweh their power, and made them molten images, even two calves, and made a grove, and worshipped all the host of heaven, and served Baal. And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire, and used divination and enchantments, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of Yahweh, and provoked him to anger. So you see that? So now you see all of what the Northern Kingdom was doing to provoke the Most High to anger, man. It just wasn't them bowing down to a statue, right, or just burning incense. They were killing their children, man. They were having these secret satanic rituals, man. You know what I'm saying? And they were really serving these molten images. They were serving these molten images and pushed the Most High to the side, pushed them out of their mind. All right. Just like you see multitudes of our people do today, man. They'll sit there and they'll push the Most High out of the way just so that they can get their wickedness done, man. That's why they don't want to keep no laws. That's why people don't want to keep the Sabbath day. That's why they don't want to keep it holy, because it's too much for them, because they can't do their wickedness, man. They can't go out and do what they want to do, because the Lord says rest upon this day. But you got 6 days to do your work. You got 6 days to do everything that you need to do, and give one day to Yah. That's it. Give one day to Yah, man, where he commands us to come together and to worship him. But people have a hard time doing that. So just imagine, man, our fathers were doing all of this. They rejected this. They rejected the Sabbath. They did all of that. Okay, and then some, man. It just wasn't idol worship that they was into. They weren't keeping the feast days like they were supposed. The feast days of God, the celebrations that the Most High put, and gave Israel according to Leviticus 23. They weren't keeping none of those. They were keeping their own, right? They established their own righteousness, okay, according to the wickedness of men. So you got a lot of that even going on now in Israel. You know what I mean? righteousness being established by men, wicked men at that. And they not following scriptures as they supposed to, man. They not following the Sabbath days. You know what I mean? They working or they doing their own thing. You know what I mean? They corrupting themselves, you know what I'm saying, and those whom they teach and all of that stuff, man. All right. So, allowing the use of enchantment and divination and all that stuff, man. This is the stuff that goes on. All right, even to this very day. Okay. So now it said, verse 18, therefore Yahweh was very angry with Israel and removed them from out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only. All right. So he said there was only one left but the tribe of Judah. That was it. But even the tribe of Judah, the Lord rejected. You see that? So he even had to remove Judah out of his sight, man, for a period of time. All right. You see that the northern kingdom, they got rejected by the Most High for 110 years. All right. You see, Judah was basically rejected for 70 years. All right. So now let's read this. So it says in verse 21, for he rent Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king, and Jeroboam drave Israel from following the Yahweh, and made them sin a great sin. For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam which he did, and they departed from them not. So they didn't even depart from them. Only ones that you hear about that basically departed from those from the sins, or didn't follow it at all, is when you read the book of Tobit. All right. So he says, until Yahweh removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants, which the prophets, so was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria until this day. So Israel was carried out of Assyria until this day. And the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, from Cutha, and from Eva, and from Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. So now the Syrian king was so evil, man. He sat there and said, "Hey, I got all this real estate here, so you know what? Let me bring these other nations over here and allow them to live there." All right. That's the ultimate insult and slap in the face, man. He transplant another people into another people's inheritance. You know what I mean? The ultimate spit in the face, man. So, and that's why Israel has so many problems with them heathens. When you get into the book of Ezra and Nehemiah, man, those heathen were still there because they were the descendants of those who had got transplanted by the kings of Assyria. All right. So it's a lot of history, man, that goes into this. All right. So Israel was basically kicked out of their land, and at this time, man, this is 722 BC. All right. So Israel, the northern kingdom in total had 19 kings. All right. They had, I believe, 19 kings. Hosea was like the last king, you know, of the northern kingdom. All right. Or the last king that was in the land of the northern kingdom of Israel. Okay. Then you'll see that, Judah had basically had its run. All right. And we'll be getting into the kings of Judah, you know what I mean? Most likely, um, tomorrow. All right. We'll go into them and you'll see, all of the kings of Judah, their acts in the wicked kings. You'll see the wicked kings. You'll see the good kings. All right. So they had one queen. All right. She was evil. All right. So you have from, I believe Asa was righteous. Jehoshaphat was righteous. I believe Uzziah was righteous for a short period of time. Um, Jehoash, Jehoash was righteous. He was a righteous king, and then he fell off. And then you had Jotham was evil. You had Ahaz was evil. Hezekiah was righteous. Manasseh was evil, but he repented. You had Amon was evil. Josiah was righteous. He was like one of the best kings. Then you had Jehoaz. He was evil. Jehoiakim was evil. Jeconiah was evil, and then you had Zedekiah was evil. So you only had a handful of kings of Judah that were actually righteous. All right, and that actually caused Israel to come back into its time of peace and glory. And then you had the rest of them, man, that caused Israel to basically sin. All right, and be destroyed and be removed out of its land. Okay, so that's just going into the history of the northern kingdom of Israel. There's more information, there's more information, what I mean, that will be presented in the future. But as I said before, you guys can go online, go to the Sons of Isaac Israelite. I'm sorry, the Sons of Isaac, 144,000. Go to the YouTube channel and you'll see, check out the exile of the Northern Kingdom. That video I go into, extensive information dealing with the history, and I'll also check out the history of the southern exile of the Southern Kingdom of Judah. All right, I go into the history there as well, show you archaeological proof as well, and also give, certain sources as well. All right, I cite certain sources that basically go into that history as well. All right, so with that, definitely check us out Monday. We'll be going into some more of biblical history, and with that, Kurashallah, I say shalom to the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel. Peace.